Is debt beating you down? You need discipline. You need the Debt Ninja. If you've been caught in a financial trap and need to be set free, then you need the Debt Ninja. Want to stop those harassing collection calls, start saving thousands in interest and fees, and get out of debt fast? Then you need to call the Debt Ninja. The Debt Ninja will find the best companies across the country that will help you consolidate all your bills into one easy payment, reduce your payments by 30 to 50%, and get you out of debt fast. If you have unsecured debt of $10,000 or more, such as credit cards, loans, or medical bills, call the Debt Ninja for a free 15-minute consultation.
Call 800-826-1246. 800-826-1246. That's 800-826-1246. Call today.
The Debt Ninja.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
Writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for point of view.
Alright, this is Jessie. I am so happy to be back with you guys. How you doing today? Okay, I have to tell you something before the show even starts. I have spent the last little over an hour just working on audio clips for the show. there has been an incredible, and boy, do I mean incredible, amount of news today. I can't even begin to put a number on the number of audio clips I found. I could go for 2 hours easy. Unfortunately, I only have one. So we're going to get started right away. Mosul. Battle of Mosul. Isn't that how we've started every show for the past couple of weeks? Going on 2 weeks now? That sounds like a skinny stack, trust me. But wait till you hear some of the good stuff here. Alright. One, I think we all agree, thousands of refugees are fleeing Mosul. Why? Anybody ever heard of Islamic State? That's why. Do we really need to break that down much further? I didn't think so. Half of my audio clips are about Mosul. And I'm going to explain why. There was a major meeting in France today. And it was the coalition against ISIL. There was a whole host of people there. Now, we don't want to listen to the entire press conference. I didn't even want to listen to it, and it's kind of my job. So, I pulled what I thought were the most important things from the press conference. Okay? And this was the international coalition that's fighting ISIL, ISIS, or Daesh. And I got some amazing audio clips from it. Now, some of them are boring, but I've got some real gold nuggets. Alright, let's start off with the one about the purpose of the meeting.
The purpose of our meeting today here was fourfold. First, to review the results of our coalition military campaign plan that we devised and set in motion about a year ago, actually less than a year ago. Two, to identify what we as a coalition can do to continue to accelerate the accomplishment of that campaign. Third, how we can better protect our homelands even as we decimate ISIL in Iraq and Syria. And fourth, how to address how we sustain and evolve the robust coalition that we have built and developed so far in response to this threat.
All right, so as you heard, they had four things they were talking about. Now, if you know anybody serious and passionate about a topic, they can go on forever. And I didn't think you guys wanted to hear an hour-long press conference. So I tried to sift through it and pull what I thought were the golden nuggets. All right? And we've got all four of Ash Carter's points, because that was the Secretary of Defense. And let's take a listen to the first one.
First, based on what I saw during my recent visit over the last few days to Iraq, and my conversations with Jean-Yves and our fellow ministers today, we were, and I certainly am, encouraged by the results of our campaign so far, in that it has been proceeding as planned. As you know, we've recently reached a critical milestone in that plan, with our local partners in the Iraqi security forces and the Kurdish Peshmerga having commenced the operation to envelop and collapse ISIL's control over the city of Mosul. The Iraqis are fighting with skill and commitment and courage. Coalition.
All right, so as you heard, I gotta find a new catchphrase. As you heard, the coalition is fighting with skill and determination. But he said, with the coalition. I'm going to go take that comment one step further. The Iraqis are fighting with skill and determination because their hands are being held, and we haven't taken the training wheels off. What would happen if we took the training wheels off and left them to their own devices? I think we've already seen that act. Anybody see that play? Because I know I did. I'm not interested in a repeat. So I'm kind of glad the training wheels are still on. Now, let's listen to his second point.
Second, as we've done every time we've met as coalition defense ministers, we looked at whether and what additional capabilities may be needed to seize emerging opportunities and further accelerate the certain and lasting defeat of ISIL. For example, we already know that there may be additional requirements for more trainers, not only for Iraqi security forces, but particularly for local police and border forces.
All right, so Ash Carter acknowledges that just defeating them in a city, fill in the blank city, isn't going to end it. It was also, there's also going to be a need to train people and to support the ongoing efforts. I agree with that. Let's go to point 3. By the way, folks, his whole statement was 6 minutes.
Third, as our campaign delivers results in both Iraq and Syria, and as we combat the ISIL cancer's metastases in places like Libya and Afghanistan, which is another critical objective of our campaign, we discussed what forms ISIL might take in the future. Here, we particularly focused on the threat to our homelands, because helping protect our homelands is obviously another critical campaign objective.
I like that one. Protecting our homelands. That includes the United States. That really does. All right. I think that's one point, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what you think about the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, I think everyone agrees they want to feel safe in their own country. That one's not too bad. Here's the fourth point, and then I've got some real nuggets I pulled out as well.
Fourth, and finally, the defense ministers broadly endorsed a set of defense policy principles that will help ensure we sustain the coalition and our commitments to it, not only for the purposes of helping our local partners win the battle, but also helping them win the peace. After all, we cannot perfectly predict what will happen after our coalition defeats ISIL in Iraq and Syria, so we have to be ready for anything, and we have to keep working together.
This is interesting. I found this one interesting. He's looking not only to keep the coalition together, to defeat ISIL, I often call it Daesh, but continuing forward. I'm wondering if this isn't a twist on NATO, because NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, does not cover acts of terrorism. It covers acts by state actors only. Everybody says, why don't we just call NATO? NATO doesn't cover terrorism. Now, let's listen to one of those golden nuggets, as I'm calling them.
And for our part, we have put our Joint Special Operations Command in the lead of countering ISIL's external operations. And we have already achieved very significant results, both in reducing the flow of foreign fighters and removing ISIL leaders from the battlefield.
They have removed a number of foreign fighters or leaders from the battlefield. You've heard me read the stories. We know that one's nailed. Stemming the flow of foreign fighters, I don't know. Although I will admit, I haven't seen news articles about fighters flowing across the Turkish border into Syria anymore. Now, speaking of Turkey...
This is one of our campaign plan's core objectives, destroying ISIL's parent tumor in Iraq and Syria, and we're on track to do just that. And as Jean-Yves mentioned, we're working also in the area and have successfully worked in the area of Manbij, Dabiq, other locations in Syria. I also want to commend Turkish forces and local forces with whom they and we have worked to help seal their border, because Turkey also has suffered from ISIL.
Yes, Turkey has suffered attacks by ISIL. But did you hear that list? Dabiq, Manbij. You've heard me read those names. Now, if you remember my routine guest, Justin Kinney, we discussed Dabiq on our most recent episode, and I wish I had the show pulled up. But I'm not sure I could pull it up and find the clip fast enough. I've got another clip about the importance of Dabiq and why that was one of the first blows to ISIS. Let me see if I can pull the show. Alright, I'll take my chances and try. I will take my chances. I do like trying to bring you the best stuff. Alright, I can't find it fast enough. But, the importance of Dabiq. I got 50 seconds on it. Let's listen.
So I don't know if you're familiar with their magazine, Dabiq. It's named after a town in Syria called Dabiq. They believe that that's the spot where the kind of final battle, their battle of Armageddon, is going to take place. And that's actually why they're in Syria to begin with. They're kind of hanging out, or they're trying to hang out at Dabiq and wait for their Messiah to arrive and basically save them. And so they believe that this battle of Armageddon is going to take place, and they think it's going to happen soon, and they're going to be a key member of that. So they're doing everything they can to spark Armageddon, essentially.
In other words, ISIL or Daesh or ISIS, I don't care what name you call them, they are an apocalyptic death cult, at least as far as your show host is concerned. They think they can actually essentially tell God when to show up. That doesn't sound right to me. It really doesn't. Alright, I'm going to play this next clip once, and I want to see if you catch it. We may have to play this one twice. It's worth it. It's not long.
And today, we as members of the coalition resolve to follow through with that same sense of urgency and focus on enveloping and collapsing ISIL's control over Raqqa as well. In fact, we've already begun laying the groundwork with our partners to commence the isolation of Raqqa.
Did you catch that? Did you catch that? They're wanting to liberate Mosul. And then they're going after Raqqa. I'd have to say, that's news. That is news. I don't know how much bigger a news story can get. But Secretary of Defense Ash Carter and the coalition have said they don't just want to take out Mosul, free Mosul. They want to take Raqqa. I am searching for a list. I'm not finding a straight up list. However, as great as these platitudes sound, if you listen to the fourth point, I want you to listen to it.
Fourth and finally, the defense ministers broadly endorsed a set of defense policy principles.
Broadly endorsed, which means there's still some squabbling going on. Last week, Carter traveled to Baghdad and to the Kurdish region in northern Iraq to witness firsthand the progress being made so far in the offensive. And that's why he did it right before the talks to discuss the future of Mosul. And before that, he went to Turkey. Germany is also part of the 60-strong coalition. So, of course, its defense minister, Ursula von Leyen, will also have a seat in the table. The German army is participating in air reconnaissance missions, air refueling, and protection for a French aircraft carrier, as well as training and arming the Kurds. Now, this isn't the first meeting they've had on Mosul. Mosul, post-ISIS, was also the topic of a conference of 22 states last Thursday, also in Paris. I secretly suspect they all want vacations, but who am I to judge? The fact that countries with such varying interests such as Iran and Saudi Arabia took part proves the coalition is a partnership made up of partly of enemy forces, at least normal enemy forces. Aside from the shared foe that is the Islamic State, some of these partners have very little in common. But of course, we've got the Baghdad-Ankara conflict, and Turkey going, we want to be part of the battle to liberate Mosul, and Baghdad going, bug off. And Erdogan's tried to make his point with the country's historic role in Mosul. However, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi has said no. Turkish troops are at an army base in the Kurdish region close to Mosul, and that is a big annoyance, big thorn in Baghdad's side, because Iraq doesn't want them there. Yet they can't do anything about it. They're like, wait a minute, Iraq is a sovereign country. Why can't they do anything about it? The overall state of Mosul is weak. And I actually have an audio clip. Let's see if I can locate this one. I've got a chance. Yeah, I found this one. This sums up why Turkey is in Iraq and Syria.
Comments. Earlier I spoke to Sona Chaptay, the Senior Fellow and Director of the Turkish Research Program at the Washington Institute. What a remarkable situation. On Sunday, the Iraqi Prime Minister saying, quote, Turkish troops will not be allowed to participate in the liberation period. Then you've got the Turkish President Erdogan saying his troops will be there. He's mission for this and we're not planning to get it. Then you get another defiant follow-up from Mr. Abadi. This is not auguring well for coherence on the battlefield.
Indeed, the crisis between Turkey and Iraq is escalating, just not a war of words, but this is actually serious business. Turkey has a forward base inside Iraqi territory called the Bashika base, where they have over 1,000 troops, including some tanks, to which the Iraqi government is objecting. Turkey is saying that these troops are there to help take Mosul from the Islamic State. Iraqi government does not want any independent forces. They want the entire military action to be governed by their own command. And I think we're seeing really a conflict of personalities here, but also strategic battle. Turkey wants, in my view, Turkey is preparing for the day that after ISIS, Iraq and Syria will be weak states, and the country, Ankara, wants to have influence in both of those places. And that's why I think it's unlikely that Turkey will pull its troops out of Iraq anytime soon.
And so you've got, I suppose, there's got to be an element of Mr. Erdogan playing to his base at home, but also how much is it about expanding that Turkish influence into northern Iraq to blunt the Kurds and defend Sunnis against Shia militia, while at the same time the Shia militia, they can't wait to have a go at the Turks.
I think Turkey has seen the writing on the wall that there will be really no Iraqi state and Syrian state for a while. Those legal entities will exist, but they won't be unified states. So these are going to be weak states producing a lot of instability. So Turkey is now preparing by creating spheres of influence in northern Iraq and northern Syria. Take, for instance, the recent Turkish incursion into Jarablus. This has allowed Turkey to create a safety belt in the northern part of Syria. And although Turkey has presence in the far reaches of Iraq, in the north, in Kurdish areas, now it's stretching even further south around Mosul. So I think this is really Turkey preparing for the meltdown of those countries or for the day when Iraq and Syria don't exist, so that it has a cordon sanitaire.
Okay, so Turkey's trying to be forward-thinking, going, these guys aren't going to be able to protect themselves for a while. They may be a country on paper, but they're essentially going to be paper tigers or paper countries. The government, what Turkey is trying to say, what this guy was trying to get across, was that Turkey is seeing the writing on the wall. Those governments may exist. They may have seats at the UN. They may be elected officials. They may have a budget. They may have a capital. How much of their country will they actually effectively be able to control after ISIL is gone and Mosul's free? So, in its own self-interest, and I understand kind of why they did this, Turkey has gone in to its neighboring countries to bolster the border security. Do I think it's right? I have mixed opinions. Seriously, mixed opinions. I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do, if they should be there. Do I understand their logic? 1,000%. But they are essentially violating another sovereign country's right not to have them on their soil. My, oh my, where does the time go? I think I just got on air and I look up and it's the bottom of the hour. Time to take that commercial break.
The following message contains a special offer for listeners of this station. Are you a man over 40? Are you constantly looking for the nearest bathroom? Do you wake up multiple times a night to use the bathroom? Right now, Perfect Prostate is sending out free bottles of their groundbreaking new formula to listeners of this station. Perfect Prostate formula was developed by medical doctor Mitchell Fleischer, and its ingredients have been clinically studied to reduce your frequent nighttime bathroom visits and promote healthy urine flow. Right now, preferred customers get their first bottle of Perfect Prostate absolutely free. There's nothing to lose. Perfect Prostate is guaranteed to reduce that constant urge to use the bathroom, especially at night, and promote healthy urine flow. Don't wait. Call now for your free bottle. Just pay shipping and processing. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251. Supplies are limited. One free bottle per household. Call now. Dial 1-800-675-0251. That's 1-800-675-0251.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
You can lay down if you wanna. You can run away if you wanna. You can pretend that this is totally okay if you wanna. You can play dead if you wanna. Forget what they said if you wanna. Turn your back on the country needing you right now, but I don't wanna.
Alright, thank y'all for hanging in there with me while I paid them bills. Run those ads. Some days I wish I could skip the commercial breaks too. But it is important. I'm torn right now. Part of me wants to keep discussing Mosul because there was so much today. But General Townsend will be making an update tomorrow, and maybe I'll have even more interesting news to bring you. So we are going to move forward. Let me get this queued up. Director of National Intelligence James Clapper spoke today at the Council on Foreign Relations. And he had some interesting comments about North Korea and nuclear weapons. Not sure how well I got this video queued up, but we're going to run with it.
Clapper took questions on a range of world issues at the Council on Foreign Relations Tuesday. And here's what he said about North Korea's nuclear program.
I think the notion of getting the North Koreans to denuclearize is probably a lost cause. They are not going to do that. That is their ticket to survival. And I got a good taste of that when I was there, about how the world looks from their vantage. And they are under siege and they are very paranoid. So the notion of giving up their nuclear capability, whatever it is a non-starter with them.
Clapper went on to say it would take some significant inducements to get North Korea to suspend its nuclear program.
I agree. North Korea is never going to give up their nuclear program. At least not willingly. And they view the program as an existential part of their survival. Obviously, the United States would like a verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And that's a quote attributed to Secretary of State spokesman John Kirby. While Clapper said there's no hard evidence the North Korean regime could strike the U.S. with a nuclear-tipped missile, you have to admit the intelligence community still believes Pyongyang has the capability to launch a missile and have a weapon on it that could reach parts of the United States. Alaska and Hawaii. Russian anti-aircraft weapons could make it even harder to enforce a no-fly zone over in Syria. Many people are calling for a no-fly zone in Syria. For those of you who aren't familiar with what's going on in Syria, gotta pull out those scorecards. We haven't pulled them out in a few days. Hopefully nobody colored all over yours or threw it out. Very useful piece of paper, what can I say? Just as a recap, we have Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, who is being backed up by President Putin of Russia. And you've got Iran supporting Russia. And your host thinks North Korea and Iran are trading partners. Don't have a whole lot of hard evidence on that one, but I've seen a couple of trades back and forth, none of them recently, but I'm willing to suspect it. And as far as the setting up a no-fly zone in Syria, Russia has announced from one end to the other that they have set up the best of their anti-aircraft defenses. Now, there is a benefit to there is a side benefit that if we can overtake Raqqa, there is a side benefit. And actually, the beak as well. U.S. military officials have received a tip that remains of one or more American hostages killed by ISIS operative known as Jihadi John may be buried in Dabiq, Syria. And the military is currently weighing whether or not it is possible to send American personnel to Dabiq to further investigate it. Some areas of northern Syria have been liberated from ISIS, and there are some U.S. Special Operations Forces in the area. I'd love to see the Americans who were murdered by ISIS brought home. Military officials are strongly emphasizing nothing is yet confirmed. They have scraps and bits and pieces of information. They're trying to piece it together into a quilt. I want to take a listen to something. I just drew something. My attention was just drawn to a very specific piece of audio. I should have more or less queued up. Let me see. Okay. What section is this?
The purpose of our meeting today here was...
All right, I'm trying to find a very specific section of audio in here about when we're going to launch strike against Raqqa.
And today, we as members of the coalition resolved to follow through with that same sense of urgency and focus on enveloping and collapsing ISIL's control over Raqqa as well. In fact, we've already begun laying the groundwork with our partners to commence the isolation of Raqqa. As we meet here, we're helping to generate the local forces that will do so. This is one of our campaign plan's core objectives, destroying ISIL's parent tumor in Iraq and Syria, and we're on track to do just that. And as Jean-Yves mentioned, we're working also in the area and have successfully worked in the area of Manbij, Dabiq, other locations in Syria. I also want to commend Turkish forces and local forces with whom...
I'm seeing reports that Ash Carter said the battle for Mosul and the battle for Raqqa will overlap. I did not hear it in the audio I listened to. But I will freely admit I did not listen to all the audio. I listened to a very nice chunk of it. I did not listen to all of it. But that would mean that in theory, the battle for Mosul could be over. You think I'd learned to swallow by now? Pardon me for just a moment. But in theory, that could mean the battle for Raqqa and Mosul. In theory, not saying hard fact, could be over before President Barack Obama leaves office. And I think this is part of his legacy building. He couldn't get the legacy he wanted. But if he can add kicking ISIS out of Mosul in Iraq and Raqqa in Syria, he could essentially say, missions complete, jobs won, we won the battle. Does that mean that there will never be another terrorist group that pops up Of course not. It just would be something I could see President Obama trying to make a legacy issue. I'm gonna back up and listen just a. I know I'm all right. I'll give up the audio clip for now. But if I find it, you're listening to it with me tomorrow night. There is other news in the world, I promise. I promise. I'm tired of the bad news. So we're going to take a look at some good news. Nomura, Japan. Hiroshima Tokuno vividly remembers the day Russian soldiers herded his family aboard cargo ships and sailed away from their homes on the Shotokan Islands in far northern Japan. Russians had occupied the Shotokan Islands and 3 neighboring islands in the days after Japan surrendered in World War II. Within 3 years, the Russians expelled all 17,000 residents and claimed the islands as their own. A move Japan has challenged without success for more than 7 decades. Like many former residents of Tokuno and his family eventually settled in a remote fishing village close to the occupied islands. Now Tokuno, other former residents, and their descendants have new hope they might finally return to their family homes. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is scheduled to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in December to discuss a deal for at least a partial return of the 4 islands called the Northern Territories in Japan and the Southern Kurils in Russia. It's spelled Kurilis. In exchange, Japan would invest billions of dollars in developing Russia's resource-rich Far East. The deal could help Japan shore up energy supplies and ease relations with its northern neighbor. But it could also bring Japan in conflict with the United States, which has sought to punish Russia for its annexation of Crimea and support for separatists in eastern Ukraine. The move entails some considerable risks for Abe, since tensions between the West and Russia are so high at present. In the longer term, however, closer relations between Japan and Russia could be valuable to the United States, since it could help draw Russia away from its increasingly strategic partnership with China. Oh yeah, if you don't remember, Russia and China are trading partners. Although diplomatic relations were restored in 1956, the dispute has prevented the 2 countries from signing a peace treaty, formally ending the war. Hang on. Russia declared war on Japan in the waning days of World War II and quickly occupied...
...of a National Intelligence Board. And they have imported many analytic tactics and techniques and procedures that we employ in the national community are being employed locally. There are...
Sorry about that. Obviously, that was a James Clapper speech. I was working on audio for something, but I wasn't able to locate the exact piece I wanted. Apologize for that cropping up. So Russia declared war on Japan in the waning days of World War II and quickly occupied the Shotokan and its 3 neighbor islands, Eterfu, Kunushiri, and Habamoi. The Closest to those islands is about 2 miles from Hokkaido, Japan. And that's Japan's northernmost main island. Although diplomatic relations were restored in 1956, the dispute has prevented the two countries from signing a peace treaty, formally ending the war, and has frustrated closer economic ties. A joint declaration in 1965 called for the return of the two smallest islands, Shikotan and Habamai, to Japanese sovereignty in the event a peace treaty is signed, but Japanese insistence on the return of all 4 islands has stymied subsequent negotiations. So Japan says the war is over, we want all 4 of our islands back, and Russia's being a bully going, maybe we'll give you 2. We haven't decided. We're trying to see what we can do with them. I feel for these families. They have been away from their ancestors and their heritage. There are only 6,000 former residents still alive, and many fear they will never see their homes again. You have to realize, this happened 7 decades ago. Japan discourages citizens from visiting the disputed islands, but Takuno has made about 20 brief visits to Shikotan since the 1990s, when a program was adopted allowing former residents and selected others to make supervised trips without visas or passports, which would imply recognition of Russian sovereignty. That's all we want, just to go home, Takuno said. On the day Shikotan is returned, I'll be there. Can you blame these people? 7 decades ago, they were forced from their homes. All they want to do now, all they want, go home. You know what story immediately popped into my mind when I looked up this one? There was another story. And that was the reunification of Korea. Yes. North Korea's growing nuclear threat is raising the need for South Korea to come up with a new formula for unification, as the changing security situation makes it hard for Seoul to seek reconciliation. Analysts said that South Korea needs to pursue a two-track plan for unification, including a contingency plan for abrupt unification, as possible instability in North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's regime could bring about a sudden collapse. South Korea's official unification policy is the unification formula for the Korean national community, which was unveiled in August in 1994 under the late President Kim Il-sung. Now we're talking South Korean President Kim Il-sung. But if you think about it, families from North and South Korea have been split apart and separated. Now in this case, the families at least were all together. But all these families want to do is visit their relatives, or if their relatives have passed, see their grave, pay homage. There are Korean days that celebrate deceased relatives. It's part of their culture. And the North Koreans have no access to it. They can't participate in this. And it's a very sad thing. Now, I am grateful that In this case, at least, the families were kept together. Got one more Mosul story. And that's about a refugee camp. As thousands of refugees flee, Mosul fears that ISIS will hide in plain sight. Thousands of refugees have escaped Mosul, but they represent a fraction of those still trapped under ISIS inside Iraq's second largest city. But there are fears already that ISIS fighters could use the excess to escape or launch terror attacks. At a camp housing some refugees from Mosul, the men are segregated on arrival to be interrogated. The men say they welcome it because they fled to the camp to be safe. But Ahmed, who came from Hawaj to the south, is accused of being an ISIS fighter. He admits that his father and two brothers joined the extremists, but he's adamant that he didn't. We heard there was an amnesty for people, even if they had family members in ISIS, Ahmad said, so I came to find out. He can only join the other refugees if he can prove he's innocent. And, of course, a week into the Mosul offensive, ISIS is outgunned, outmanned, but fighting back with guerrilla tactics, suicide attacks, car bombs, digging of tunnels, and launching surprise assaults. Like one in the town of Rutba, 200 miles west of Baghdad. Planting its fighters among desperate refugees to wreak more violence is a tactic that ISIS has stated they will use and would find it hard to resist. And since the offensive began, the United Nations has received unconfirmed reports of massacres in Mosul, including the killing of 50 police officers and the murder of 70 civilians in a village near the city. And as I always like to end my broadcast on a high note, I got a fun story today. I apologize for not having one last night, but I got a fun story for tonight.
Well, we all love that time of year when Girl Scouts come around with those famous cookies, and now you can eat those cookies for breakfast. Well, in a more acceptable manner. Girl Scout cookies cereal is a real thing, and it's coming for us in 2017. Pictures of the 2 General Mills cereal boxes were released this weekend. The limited edition cereal is inspired by the Thin Mints and Samoa's cookies. The cereal launch date coincides with the release of 2 new s'mores cookie flavors. This is all a celebration of 100 years of Girl Scouts selling cookies.
You are listening.
I'm sorry, I don't know where that other audio clip came from. But Girl Scout cookies? Cereal? Cool! And on that note, I'm out of here!